There's two that really jump out. One, I did this when I first went to India. The way I got the gig is I'd heard from a State Department, actually a guy who's a Fulbright scholar, and he was American over there, and I met him, and he told me that State Department had this cultural exchange, and if you could convince him you're an expert in anything from hydroponics to country music, you could maybe get a gig. And I said, that's for me, since I know a lot about both. And I went to Madras, and John Inman was with me at that time, that really great guitar player, John, and he and I both were over there knocking around just seeing what we could see. And so there we were at the State Department in Madras, and I pitched this deal to the State Department guy, and he just kept looking at me. And after about the second song, he just said, "Hey, do you mind?" And he reached down and pulled out a banjo. And he said, "I've been waiting for you to walk through this door for a long time." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to get you this gig if you can let me sit in every once in a while." So we came back the next year, and that was in 1986. And we did our first tour, and then John went on back, and I started touring by myself solo, and I just go over there every couple of years, like I say. And one of the first shows we did, this woman came backstage, and I do "Don't Bury Me on the Lone Prairie," and these people listen with these innocent ears over there. They've never heard any of these songs. And it's country music, but what country? That's the question. Right. And they have their own country music there. And so we tried to point that out and make parallels and put people in the scene. And so I tell the stories about the young cowboys out there alone, and something happens and he's going to die, but his compadres, are going to have to move on, and he just beseeches them, "Don't bury me out here." And so I do "Don't bury me," and they're all singing along, "Don't bury me," And so after the show, this woman came up to me, and she's an Indian woman, and she's really sweet, and said, "I very much enjoyed your program, but tell me one thing, that song you do about that poor young cowboy, and you had to leave his body in the prairie. It's very sad you had to do that. Is there no way that you could go back and get his body and bring him home so he could be buried as he wished?" And she just took it absolutely seriously. And that was the great thing about playing for these people. They would cry when they would hear these songs. It was real to them. And then I went on up into Pakistan, and it was when this general, Zia, was in charge over there. And so he was running a tight ship. And we played the Peshawar University, and we went to Peshawar, which is just east of the Khyber Pass. And I mean, it's serious stuff going up there. But the people were great. The people were fun to me. This is before really everything went to hell in a handbasket, and we got to where we shouldn't be, and pissed everybody off, because they were pretty friendly with the Americans at that time. There were a lot of spies in town. I did the show, and it had to be canceled because there was so much strife, and so they said, "We're going to move it to the steps of the U.S. consulate there in Peshawar." And the Iranians, it was the Ayatollah's birthday. This was in 1991 or 92. It was the Ayatollah's birthday. And they were broadcasting, it was the Iranian embassy was right next to the American embassy. They were broadcasting all this martial music and the Ayatollah speeches down, at ear-splitting volume into the American embassy, and people were marching in front of the embassy saying, "Death to the heathen, death to America." So I'm going to do this show. And so they go and
tough crowd.
Tough crowd. So they go up to them though, and they say, "We've got this guy from Austin, Texas," and they told him I was a folklorist. And he's going to come do his show about 7 o'clock. Do you think you could knock off around 7 o'clock and maybe even come to the show? And they went, "Okay." So they knocked off at 7. We had the big show on a tent, in a tent. And a lot of these folks came, and a lot of people from that community came. And I teach them how to yodel, and I do a lot of silly stuff. And about halfway through the show, someone was running down the aisle, and he was screaming in this language, Urdu, that they speak, and I didn't know what he was saying, but what he'd said was that the Muslim was calling all the faithful to prayer from the mosque, and that we should stop this show right now. And so they said the concert is suspended, and everybody got up and left. And so I'm there by myself, sitting on the edge of the stage, just thinking I'm in a Twilight Zone movie. And pretty soon, and they were all out, on their knees praying. And after the show, after they prayed, they slowly filtered back in and said, "Hey, he's still playing." So he's still here. So they all came back and sat down, and so I did All Shook Up by Elvis, and they got up and danced, the same people. So we had some wild times, you know, for sure.
That is something else. Well, can we get another tune out of you?
Sure. I could do this new one I'd try to do. It's a country song, in keeping with your format here. If I could... this is a song I wrote over in India, and like I say, I wrote about 10 songs. And, it's a sad one, but doesn't have to be sad. There is a silver lining in everything. Let me do it in D, and maybe I could play a little harmonica. Left my harmonicas back in Austin, and I had to go out to the Guitar Center that gave me a good deal today. Do you know Justin Alverson?
Oh yeah.
You know, Justin works at that Guitar Center. Now he's stationed in Lubbock, and I called him, and he called him up and said, "Give old Bob a good deal." It's called, I don't know what it's called yet. I still dream of you. You have made me see. You have shown me love to be open, wild and free. Why must I live alone after all that you have done? It's not right to stay apart when you've agreed to live in my heart. You've always been true, keeping me from despair, never holding back love, always glad I was there. There was nothing left unsaid, every moment past was gold. In the blink of an eye, suddenly we said our last goodbye. I pray the day will come when you'll come back the only one, when I'll love you with all my heart, not for one moment kept apart. I still dream of you. You have made me see. You have shown me love to be open and free. Why must I live alone after all that you have done? It's not right to stay apart when you've agreed to live in my heart.
Thank you very much. Bob Livingston, Texas troubadour, hydro-folklorist, and just all-around good guy.
Hydro-folklorist, I like it.
Playing at the All Good Cafe this evening. That's down at Main and Walton in Deep Elm. Bob Livingston. You'll have a good time if you go down there and see him. We've got some messages to play. We get